All right, I have finally found the worst, by far, the worst Airbnb horror story. And it happened right here in California. And it underscores that the politicians have completely destroyed any sense of justice in our state. And it's one of the big reasons why we have such a expensive rental market. Coming up, I'll explain what happened, the horror story, and what we're doing to fight to make positive change happen. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and boy, do I have a horror story for you on Airbnb rentals. But before I get into that, I do want to let you know that this is a video about why California housing costs are so high, and it's also a video about how people who play by the rules, who do the right thing, have been victimized in this state. Victimized by politicians that have enabled bad actors to behave poorly and get away with it. They coddle criminals, they reward bad behavior. And this story I'm about to tell you illustrates all of those elements. Bad behavior being rewarded, as well as the high cost of real estate rentals, apartments in California. Here is the story in the LA Times. The tenant from hell. She refused to pay for her luxury Airbnb for 540 days. She says she has a legal right to stay. The story talks about this guy, Sasha Javanovic, and he's got a little cottage that he's decided that he would rent out in Brentwood. Elizabeth Hirshhorn rented his cottage in April of 2022 for a few days. Then she decided she doesn't need to move out. She's been living there rent-free ever since. And she's now demanding $100,000 in a relocation fee from the landlord. A judge says, well, because Los Angeles politicians passed a rent stabilization ordinance, that he has no legal reason to evict her. Sounds like a real nightmare. It is a real nightmare, but it illustrates so much about what's wrong in California, not only in our court system that coddles criminals and protects wrongdoers, but also the reasons why we have such high rent in our state. Here's Fox 11 with their story. Let me play this real quick for you.
An Airbnb tenant has been dubbed the tenant from hell. A woman apparently refuses to leave this multi-million-dollar rental for more than a year later, and she won't pay up either. The LA Times is reporting the homeowner is in a contentious legal battle with the woman. It's all over a city ordinance put into effect during COVID that gives renters rights to stay without paying. Her attorney also says she didn't pay because part of the home is not permitted correctly. She won't leave until the homeowner pays her $100,000 for a relocation fee.
So that's the story. Now, this is every landlord's worst nightmare. You get someone who comes in, then breaks the contract, doesn't pay you, but you're a landlord, so all of the legal requirements to provide maintenance, to provide access, to pay the mortgage, all of those legal requirements are on your rear end. So you've done everything right. And you now have to, under the law, continue to do everything right, or else you're going to get sued and you're going to get punished. That's what the California way. Liberal politicians, the Democrats in Los Angeles and in Sacramento and every city hall, these liberal Democrats are all out there saying free lunch, renters' rights. Look, I'm not on the side of greedy people, but here the reality is 98% of landlords own one or two properties. The 2%, which are the big corporations, they actually don't mind all this crap happening to the small mom and pop landlords because it just pushes them out of the market. Then all the corporations get to buy everything up. And to them, their view is, look, we know we get bad people in. We just raise everyone's rent to accommodate that. It's sort of like the smash and grabs and what the retail stores are doing. They raise the prices for all of us who are law-abiding consumers to pay for the transgressions of the criminals. But we have laws in California that makes it toxic for people to want to rent out apartments or even build apartments or buy units and keep them as rentals. So as a result of the politicians with rent control and renters' rights, no eviction moratoriums during COVID, which was ruled unconstitutional not once but twice by the U.S. Supreme Court, but still happening in California. We've basically told landlords that it's too risky for you to own property in California, that you should go buy in another state and provide them with more rental units. And that's what the market's doing. Apartment owners, property owners are fleeing California, taking their capital with them. Those rental units are being converted pretty much into homes again, being sold in the housing market. And everyone is fleeing to other places in the country. As a result, rental prices are skyrocketing. We now have rent stabilization or rent control, let's call it what it is, that limits the rate of rent increases. What that means is that guaranteed your rent's going up every single year, irrespective of whether the market conditions warrant it, because you have to raise rents now as a landlord to never fall behind on what your economic potential should be for that property. That doesn't help tenants. It doesn't help landlords. You also have all these extra costs that are now put in, such as relocation fees and eviction requirements, such that, you know, a tenant can sit there and squat for months, trash your unit. You have to bear all those losses. Well, actually, you don't. You run the risk of those losses, so you basically pass those costs on to other renters in the future. This is why rent is so high. It's not because we don't have enough laws restricting what landlords do. It's because we've made it toxic for people to be in the landlord position in California. And this story out of Brentwood is perfect as an example. So this squatter, this criminal, let's call her what she is. She is a criminal. She's a thief. She is a squatting thief. She has an attorney, Colin Walshock, probably a real ambulance chaser. He said, my client's not required to pay rent because the city never approved the unit for occupancy. The shower was constructed without a permit. Oh, geez. So because of that, your client gets to use an unpermitted unit for free? Now, she should be out. If you're so concerned about the permit not being done right, and by the way, the landlord vehemently denies those allegations. If you're so concerned about that, an unpermitted environment, then get the hell out. Here's the reality. This guy, Colin Walshock, he's a liar. He's a cheat. He's a scammer, just as much as his client's a scammer. And the reason why he's making this story up is because he knows with a straight face his client's, a bad apple, a criminal. And he's just part of the shakedown here. This is a scam. No different than the Nigerian prince emailing you in the middle of the night saying that he gives you $1 million if you give him $10,000 in your bank account number. Quote, after he was caught breaking the law, instead of doing the right thing, he has resorted to bullying, harassment, and filing of frivolous lawsuits containing elaborate false stories all in an attempt to cover his tracks. This just adds insult to injury. The person who is a harasser here is the squatter. The person who has frivolous demands is the squatter demanding $100,000 in relocation fees. What are California politicians saying about this horror story? Nothing. It's no different than any of the other horror stories. You've probably seen some of the stories. There's actually, I think, even a show on one of the cable networks. Nightmare squatters who destroy property and the landlord has to try to evict them, get in there, clean it up, get it ready, and put it back on the market. Makes for interesting TV, but it's the reality for landlords in California. This is a confluence of bad housing policy and the pro-criminal policies of Democrat politicians. There's no other way to look at it. This story weaves both of those malignant, negligent policy proposals or policy realities in California together. At Reform California, we're fighting to change California policies so that people who abide by the law are actually protected by the law. People who break the law, like this one, out on the rear end, punished. We also want to make things more affordable in California by making it more enticing for people to want to invest in our housing market, to want to invest in small businesses and bring more back to the state that we've lost. We can only do that if we fire the politicians. There's just no way to sugarcoat it. So go to the website reformcalifornia.org, join the fight, chip in a contribution, sign up as a volunteer, get our voter guide so that you can help us spread the word and make change in politicians so that we can make change in policy. Plus, share this video by liking and subscribing to this channel, sharing it with your friends. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media and get this story out. Until next time, don't rent without really weighing your risks. Any sort of AirBNBs, you never know what sort of wingnut crazy person you're going to get in your unit. And continue to check this channel for updated news each and every day. Carl DeMaio with Reform California. Thanks for watching. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.